Many people believe that everything can be solved with willpower. Procrastinators lack willpower, that's it. They're a lazy bunch of do-nothings who need a kick in their ass. As you've probably understood by now, procrastination isn't a one-dimensional issue. It's complex, it takes many different shapes, its roots can go way back, and likewise, there is no simple one-dimensional solution to it. Because if there was, procrastination would have been eradicated a long time ago. Still, here we are, with around 20% of the population to admit being a chronic procrastinator. That's 1 out of every 5 individuals. That's huge. Remember the iceberg model I showed you before? The visible part of the iceberg was our conscious self, right? The one who's ultimately deciding what to do, based on the suggestions bubbling up from our unconsciousness. Well, this is the seed of willpower. It's that little voice in our head who has the amazing faculty to override all the suggestions and go with something else. It's the power to say no now to something that is very tempting and do something else. It's also called delayed gratification. One of my all-time favorite studies is the marshmallow experiment of Walter Mischel. It stars a bunch of little kids, most of which succumbed on average within 6 minutes to eating a marshmallow. Had they waited 15 minutes, they would have gotten a second marshmallow as premium. Would have been a cute hidden camera, were it not that they did a follow-up study 20 years later. What they found was astonishing. Those who successfully resisted the temptation 20 years earlier had better jobs, earned more, had more stable marriages, etc. than those who hadn't resisted. Basically, this study revealed that the ability to delay gratification is a major factor of success in life. The ability to say no to temptation. For the procrastinator, that seems like more bad news, right? But is it really? Out of 9 procrastination styles we've identified, how many of them really are dealing with issues of willpower? Let's see. Avoiders. Avoiders are basically dealing with stress, and it is this stress that should be addressed. Willpower can temporarily force avoiders to comply, but it's really fighting symptoms, not the root cause. Freezers. It's basically the same issue as with avoiders. Non-motivated procrastinators. Again, fighting symptoms. Here the real issue at hand is motivation. Even if you're able to force yourself to do something, you will still not like it. The problem will present itself over and over and over again. Rebels. With rebels, willpower is pointless because it is their willpower that causes the procrastination. They already have plenty of it. Low esteem procrastinators. Oh, here willpower will do more harm than good. Imagine someone with low self-esteem. You're telling that person he or she should be working on their willpower. Now, any failure to overcome their procrastination will be further proof for them that they're just, in fact, a failure, tumbling them down even lower on their self-esteem scale. Willpower here is just counterproductive. Perfectionists. Well, these guys are already working a lot. Willpower is just totally pointless here. So what, they should be using their willpower to stop working? Thrill seekers. Again, pointless. They're in this for the dopamine. Willpower doesn't give them dopamine. You're just taking all the fun out of this. Fun should be repeated. Boring should be avoided. You're just gonna make avoiders out of them. Equalizers. This is somewhat similar as with perfectionists. These guys are already working and starting on time, just not on the right projects. They need tools, not willpower. And finally, addicts. Addiction is basically an overcompensation for something missing in our life. So again, willpower won't address the root cause, only create more frustration and need for overcompensation. This can potentially turn ugly. Whoa, so that's it? Did you see what just happened? Not a single one of the 9 procrastinator types are dealing with issues of willpower. Yes, in some cases willpower could have an effect, but it is mostly fighting symptoms rather than root causes. Now, I'm not saying willpower is not important. It is one of the most reliable indicators for success in life. So yes, by all means do work on your willpower, but don't do it to solve your procrastination, because willpower is not the problem. You see, scientists have been looking at willpower very closely. One of the main questions they had was, how does it come that some people seem to have more willpower than others? Is it a failure of executive function? Is that little voice in their head really too weak? Now, it turns out with procrastinators, it isn't the willpower that is lower. It's the temptation that is just overwhelming. Now let me turn this around. Non-procrastinators do not have more willpower than procrastinators. They are just less tempted than procrastinators. And this makes total sense to me. I remember when I was a kid. At the end of a meal, my grandmother always asked me if I wanted dessert. Most of the time my stomach was full, so I said, no thanks. My grandmother always reacted in disbelief and with admiration for my willpower, whilst she was indulging herself with chocolates or sweets. But the truth was, to me, it didn't cost me anything to say no. I just didn't want it. It wasn't attractive at that moment, so it wasn't about willpower. It really was about how much I wanted something. Yeah, that kind of takes the glory out of the whole willpower debate, doesn't it? Those marshmallow kids didn't have more willpower than the other kids. They just wanted it less. I know life is unfair because the kids who wanted it less ended up getting 2 marshmallows. Anyway, so if you don't procrastinate, it means you're just less tempted by stuff. So why are some of us more tempted and others less? Remember the iceberg. We have 3 unconscious drivers: genetics, prior experience, and our immediate surroundings. To stay with the example of my grandmother, genetics. Some people just like sweets more than others. Prior experience. My grandmother had been wiring her brain her whole life to eat desserts, whilst I was just starting off in life and we usually didn't get dessert at home. And last but not least, our surroundings. Take the availability for sweets away and my grandmother won't be eating sweets either. It's that simple. So back to procrastination. I want to make a case here to stop blaming and shaming procrastinators with this whole willpower thing, because it's bogus. On top of that, and I kid you not, scientists have recently discovered that the use of willpower is causing so much internal friction that it ends up damaging the telomeres on our DNA strings, which ultimately leads to a shorter lifespan. So let's go easy on that willpower, and let's try to find a better, healthier solution for our procrastinators.